Okay, this is the one. I can feel it. I can feel it.
What's up, everybody? Willie the Composer is back. I didn't upload a video last week because I've just started some new classes and they have been a pain in the butt. So, yeah. Last week we had a power outage here. We're gonna go on a walk and have a look at how extensive the power loss has been. And that lasted only a couple hours. But now, the unthinkable has happened. Today, my air conditioning broke down, and as you may recall, I live in Florida, so it's been between 83 degrees and 89 degrees in here all day. But anyway, I guess I'm ready to make some kind of video here. I got my flannel that I put on whenever I'm just sitting around in my underwear and somebody knocks on the door. You know, and you don't want to just be in your underwear when you answer the door, so I got a little shirt that I put on. Well, I sound really low-key right now. They must think there's something wrong with me. Well, in that case, I'm gonna be super peppy now. Okay. No, I can't do it. I can't fake it. I just gotta be who I am. I just gotta talk the way I feel like talking. But this week, I'm gonna dial it back a little bit to something like I did with Identity as an Illusion and talk about a subject that's been on my mind recently. It's often said to addicts, people with any problem in particular, the first step to solving the problem is to recognize that there is a problem. This is most famously noted in Alcoholics Anonymous with the 12-step program. By the way, I just want to say that I have no previous experience with Alcoholics Anonymous whatsoever. Just what I've read about, and there's a couple people I know who have been to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I tell you what, no matter what position I am in, I will never go to Alcoholics Anonymous. If I'm forced to go to some kind of counseling, I'll have to pick an alternative, because Alcoholics Anonymous, most people don't know, is actually religious. So there's definitely a problem here with Alcoholics Anonymous. I just realized something. I haven't even explained what the religious aspect of Alcoholics Anonymous is. Well, let me pull up my trusty information. Yeah, my tool here. I mean, we walk around with these things all the time. Like, can you remember the last time your phone was more than 5 feet away from you for more than 24 hours? And we forget that they actually enable us to access the collective knowledge of the entire human race via the internet. I mean, when we're sitting around just playing games or looking at porn, we could probably be learning about the fall of Constantinople. 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Sanity? So that means that alcoholism is a condition of insanity. Oh yeah, and believe that a power greater than ourselves, like the United States government, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Oh, God, that's who they were talking about. As we understood him. You see, they got that in italics. That's how they can include, it doesn't have to be the Christian God, it doesn't have to be the Muslim God, it doesn't have to be Jewish God. It just has to be some kind of God, God as we understand him. What if you're an atheist? Like, who's my God? John Lennon? Fine. I'll make a decision to turn my will and my life over to John Lennon. God, it's so fucking hot. But Willie, why are you wearing a flannel in this video if it's so hot in your apartment? Fuck you, that's why. Okay. So I don't know exactly where this stems from. Maybe this stems from, my secular humanist beliefs, so to speak. Or maybe this just, stems from hardships I've faced in my life and how I overcame them. But to me, I have a fundamental problem with this step 1. The problem is that once you admit you're powerless to solve something, you can never solve it. If I say that I am powerless to do anything, I'm lying to myself. Especially something like alcoholism. Any kind of addiction, really. You are never powerless, okay? We, as human beings, are granted the special gift of an ego, a sense of identity, a sense of self, a sense of determination of our actions, okay? which results in moral rights and wrongs. But leaving those aside, we do have free will. And if we don't, we certainly feel like we do, so we might as well live like we do, right? But as far as I'm concerned, I'm heavy on free will, heavy existentialist, woo-woo. And I just cannot accept this proposition that the best way to cure yourself, to fix your problem with drinking or anything else, is by admitting that you're powerless to do it. Maybe in the old days, drunks were different. And they were the kind of people that thought that they had no problem drinking. I got no problem drinking. I got no problem drinking. But I don't know, man. If that's the case, I don't see it now. Nowadays, when I see alcoholics, I see people who say, I know I have a problem. I know I have a problem. I know I have a problem. They don't need to be told how powerless they are. They don't need to admit how powerless they are. They need to admit how powerful they are. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter whether you say, I have a problem, or you just keep it in your head. You know you have a fucking problem when you've got a fucking problem. But in reality, if you really think about it, you don't have a problem. I believe that the real first step to fixing yourself in any situation, and I believe this would work with alcoholism, at least for some people, is admitting that you never had a problem to begin with. Now hear me out. I'm going to try and get that to make sense. As a believer in free will, okay, and I'll admit that it's a belief and it's not a fact, I feel as though every time you do something, you've chosen to do it. No one can truly force you to do anything. And that's the truth. It's just an issue of whether you convince yourself that there are more options than you're seeing. And of course, I'm not saying that there's no such thing as addiction. Of course, it's a real thing. It's scientifically measurable. But addiction or no, I would argue that every single time you ever put a drink to your mouth and drank it, you chose to do it. You chose to do it. No one can ever force you to take a drink of something, unless they hold you down and force it down your throat. But every alcoholic is responsible for becoming an alcoholic. And admitting responsibility doesn't mean admitting powerlessness. That makes no sense to me. That's the opposite of what you should do. Admitting responsibility means admitting that you are powerful, right? Because if you're responsible for something, that means that you had some kind of authority that put you in that position. If I'm responsible for burning down a school, that means I had the free agency to burn down that school. So if you're responsible for becoming an alcoholic, that means that you had the free agency to become an alcoholic. So why the hell does your free agency have to stop now that you're going through treatment? What Alcoholics Anonymous does is the opposite of what would be most helpful to people. It turns people into neurotic messes, constantly worrying about what's right and what's wrong, and whether what they're doing will lead them to another drink. I would argue that to go from being an alcoholic to never drinking again is not nearly as admirable as going from being an alcoholic to having one or two beers every now and then. That takes a lot more discipline. And it's fucking possible. It really is. If you believe in yourself, you have to have confidence. Because if you can have the free agency to drink, you have the free agency to not drink. When you drank, when you chose to drink, you made the problem for yourself. The problem didn't exist. Okay, nobody's born an alcoholic. You chose to make that problem for yourself. Because there's 3 levels to it, right? On the first level, you're thinking, oh, it's no big deal. I can stop drinking whenever I want. But on the second level, deep in your heart, you know you've got a problem. You know that this is going to result in the end of your family or the end of your marriage or the end of your job. But on the third level, you got to go even deeper and think, was it ever really a problem to begin with? If you constantly keep walking around thinking, oh man, I need a drink, I need a drink, I need a drink, you're making it a problem. When you admit your powerlessness over alcohol, you've let the alcohol win. You'll always be an alcoholic. That's what they teach you in Alcoholics Anonymous. You'll always be an alcoholic. It's the most ridiculous shit ever. Next time you have a problem, look inside yourself and really ask yourself, is this really a problem? Or did I just make it a problem? There is one Bible verse in particular that I do really like. I remember it from the days when I was a Christian, and even now that I'm no longer a Christian, I still really like this quote. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that is exactly flies in the face of Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, maybe they would justify and say, oh, well, alcoholism is something you cannot change. Bullshit! Have I personally experienced something like this in my life? Well, I've never been an alcoholic, but I have had problems with certain substances before. I don't want to get into it. You guys can speculate. That can be part of the mystery of it, is people guessing, what the hell was he on? I'm cool with that. Go ahead. The point is that it wasn't any stupid counselings, any praying, any admitting how powerless I was and what a big problem I have. Because most of the everyday problems in most people's lives, and I don't think this would work for everybody, but most of the problems in most people's lives are made up, are fucking problems that they turned into problems. And I realized that that's what I had done to myself. And I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. You know, did I still want to keep going back? Hell yes, I did. But every time I did, I just went, I don't want to, though. I kind of want to, but I know where it leads, and I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? You have the power. As a human being, you have the free agency to do whatever you want. You need to stop listening to your second level. You need to stop listening to your, oh, such a problem, I can't do this. You need to start listening to your third level, okay? One of the main reasons I don't mind when other people are religious is because it gives them solace. It gives them someone to talk to. But really, as an atheist, I know for a fact that they're not talking to God, they're talking to themselves, okay? They need to work things out in their own head, and praying is a way to do that. But I'm here to tell you that anything that can be achieved through praying can be achieved without praying. And that, as a matter of fact, praying is detrimental, because then when you pray for something and it doesn't happen, you might even run the risk of blaming God. No, it's always you. It's always fucking you. It's always in your mind. It's always in your head. It's always something you did. If you do feel as though you have a problem and it really is out of your control, somebody else is doing wrong, well, that's where you need the serenity to accept the things you cannot change. But you need the courage to change the things you can. This mindset of, I'm powerless over my problems, I am powerless to alcohol, is ridiculous. It completely robs people of that courage that they need to change that problem in their lives. And I would wager that more is within your power than you think. If you think something is not within your power, think again. Really think again. And see if there's anything, any little thing you can do to improve your situation. I know I focused heavily on alcoholism for the, just for the fact that I was, kind of reviewing Alcoholics Anonymous, but really this does apply to pretty much anything. Anything, any trouble you ever have in your life. Think, is this really a problem? Is there anything I can do about it? Why don't I do something about it? That's all. That's really it. But I may be off the mark. Maybe it only works for me. If anything, you just got to hear what works for me. See you guys next week for the Flat Earth. I seriously have no idea why they ever made another game after this one. This is like the best goddamn game ever. I literally spend hours playing it. There she is, folks. My prize. Why does every YouTube channel have to become a gaming channel at some point?